Sveiki, esu Egidijus Bernotas, Glimstedt advokatų kontoros partneris. Šiandien pristatau Jums laidą Glimstedt Komentaras. Šios dienos tema – migracija tarp Baltijos šalių, Ukrainos ir NVS. Šiandien turiu pasikvietę svečius iš užsienio, todėl pereinu prie diskusijos anglų kalba. Hello, I'm Egidijus Bernotas, a partner in the law firm Glimstedt in Lithuania. I invited guests from Estonia, Mr. Randu Riiberg.
Hi, Egidijus.
Also, we invited with us expert on migration matters in Glimstedt, Mrs. Kseniya Veličkiene.
Hello.
And we have our partner in Ukraine, in one of the largest Ukrainian law firms, the managing partner, Mikhail Iliyashev. Hello.
Hello.
Kseniya, given the background as you're an expert on migration matters in Glimstedt, what is the migration statistics today in Lithuania?
We have more than 145,000 of immigrants, among of whom more than 118,000 are immigrants from third countries and more than 80,000 of immigrants from European Union. If we compare the official statistics to the last year, we can see that the number of immigrants has increased more than 60%. If we take in general, so the most part of immigrants come from Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and India. And from European Union countries, we have immigrants from Latvia, Poland, Germany, and Italy.
Mikhail, in June this year, as a part of Estonian business delegation led by my partner Randu Riiberg, I was participating in a trip to Kiev. We visited Irpin, Bucha. At that time, at least, I did not feel a physical danger of the war, even though it was there. The warrior strike alarms on. Can you tell a little bit about the situation that Ukraine is facing today?
Sometime we had this air raid alarms. We are not ignoring them. We are going to the shelters in order to secure our life. Children and schools are also in the shelters during the air raid alarms. But nevertheless, we are trying to maintain life in the city and in the country.
In Lithuania, Ukrainians, altogether with Belarusians, were an elite of immigrants. Can you tell a little bit about the migration dynamics in Ukraine?
Ukraine was among the biggest donors of population in Europe during last decade, I think. On the beginning of war, as of January 1st, 2022, population of non-occupied territory of Ukraine was 34.5 million people. Since full-scale invasion, 12 million people across the border of Ukraine through registered points of border crossing with Europe. Many of them came back, but in accordance with our statistics, we believe that near 4.5 million are still staying abroad. There are 7 million of people are internal refugees, so just who changed their place of residence from the beginning of the war.
What is the situation with Ukrainian migration to Estonia? How does the state handle this flow of migrants? And also here in Lithuania, we had the flow of illegal migrants from Iraq, Syria, which flow was backed mostly by Belarusian forces. People were brought deliberately to our borders, and our migration department and border control people were forced to prevent them entering the country. What is the situation in Estonia today?
I think we are one of the kind of leading accepting countries in the world when it comes to the percentage compared to the population. So we have currently over 60,000 immigrants, and further there more than 50,000 have used Estonia as a transit country. That means that we have over 5% of our population formed of Ukrainian immigrants. What Estonia does is that we have given the immigrants basically the same rights that our own citizens have. When it comes to the immigrants, which, for example, Belarus tried to import to Lithuania and Poland, then we don't have we haven't had those concerns largely because we luckily don't have Belarus as our neighbor. But what Estonia has done is that we have at least provided our police forces to support. I think it was Polish border to help to manage the situation when it was really hot.
Since 1991, Lithuania lost almost 1 million of its inhabitants. We had a population of 3.7 million. Now we have less than 3 million. People were fleeing, and the migration especially was accelerated with the exception of Lithuania to EU. Altogether, Lithuanians were very active in human resource dependent business such as transport, logistics, construction. That is to say, Lithuanians have always been dependent on the flow of migration from Asia, from East European countries. Kseniya, question to you. Can you tell about the situation in Belarus? In the today's status, can everyone who wishes leave the country?
According to the international treaties and constitution of the Republic of Belarus, each person has fundamental right of free movement. However, this fundamental right can be restricted in some cases. This right of free movement can be restricted seeking to protect national security. However, it's important to understand the Belarusian reality and that the term national security has not been defined in the legislation. That's why this term, this national security, can be used and can lead to the arbitrary restriction of free movement and free traveling of the citizens of the Republic of Belarus. Moreover, some changes in the law on the exit from and entry into the Republic of Belarus by the citizens of the Republic of Belarus has passed already first reading in the Parliament of the Republic of Belarus. In case these changes are adopted, people liable for military service will be restricted on free movement, and they will be able to leave the country only with the consent of the military registration and the enlistment office.
Mikhail, what is the legal regime in Ukraine today?
Legal regime of Ukraine was changed on 24th of February from the very beginning of Russian invasion. Rada, our parliament, voted for martial law regime in Ukraine. In accordance with this law, so now the military administration is taking a lot of powers of the state executive bodies.
Baltic business was one of the most active in terms of investments in CIS countries, Belarus, Russia, also in Ukraine. We had a lot of retailers, we had food processing plants opened in Belarus, we had retailers coming to Ukraine who continue their operations. Unfortunately, the war changed a lot, including the mentality and approach in respect of that type of cross-border transactions and businesses. Unfortunately, the reality is such that when people have to decide, they have to take the decision based on business solutions, and those are not the most convenient decisions to make. When people want to leave Belarus and Russia, they have to think either to sell the business, either to halt it, either to liquidate it. Unfortunately, local legislation is not always favoring that type of solutions. Kseniya, can you please comment a little bit on Belarusian legislation in respect of halting business in Belarus, liquidating, or calling it for bankruptcy, for example?
So, if we are talking about Belarusian legislation regarding closing options of closing business, so according to the law, the business in Belarus can be closed during liquidation or bankruptcy procedures. It's important also to know that according to the law of the Republic of Belarus, criminal liability of the owner of the company which has been already bankrupt or which has been in the position in the stage of bankruptcy applies in the event of intentional bankruptcy. What is important that, for example, considering our current political situation when a lot of companies, investors just want to run from Belarus, the option of halting business could be applicable. However, unfortunately, the law of the Republic of Belarus does not prescribe procedure of suspension of business activity of companies. And what, as a result, can lead to the situation when a company does not submit its financial reports for more than 25 months, the registration office can take it as a ground for starting liquidation procedure. That's why my personal recommendation would be, in case a company, its executives, its owners would like to close its business in Belarus, always to apply for a lawyer who would provide a professional recommendation and will find the best solution considering the specifics of the case.
Mikhail, given the status of war and the current status of actual life that you described, I understand the business and the life is going on. Can you tell a little bit about the environment that the business is facing? What kind of regulations we have to meet?
The first big problem is completion of the contracts concluded before the beginning of the war. So we all know about the force majeure considerations and force majeure circumstances which grant the right for non-fulfilling party some excuse and not to pay fines and to extend time of performing the contract. On the very beginning of the war, on 28th of February, Ukrainian Chamber of Industry and Commerce issued a letter confirming that this Russian invasion is a force majeure circumstance. But all parties shall understand that this letter is not an excuse. Each of them should address a Chamber of Commerce to get special certificate of force majeure to have the right granted by the contract not to extend the performance of that contract. The other problem is cross-border transactions and some limitations imposed by National Bank of Ukraine and Ukrainian government. So from formal perspective, all cross-border transactions are not restricted, but there are a lot of currency restrictions. National Bank of Ukraine introduced a temporary moratorium on cross-border foreign currency payments with certain exemptions. So there is a list of critical import you can pay from Ukraine currency for the purposes of import of this critical import. There is a special limitation for obtaining currency for supplies of goods. So now there is a 180 days period during which the exporter should get payment for the exported goods. There is also limitations in case you import some goods and you buy currency on the currency market, you need to pay it within 2 days. In case you are not paying in 2 days, the servicing bank will sell your currency on the market without your permit. As to the dividends, it's a very important issue for all investors. But in reality, there is no limitations for payment of dividends, extraction of dividends, but it's not allowed to pay them abroad. So due to the fact that you are not allowed to buy currency, you just will not simply have an opportunity to extract dividends out of Ukraine. You may collect them in Ukraine and spend them only in Ukraine.
Randu, Estonian government is one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine in this period of war. Can you tell the same about Estonian business? Is it continuing its activities in Ukraine?
As Mikhail just explained, the situation is difficult for any business. The same applies to Estonian investors and businesses in Ukraine. Those who have been able to downscale, they have downscaled. Of course, there are businesses that are running at the moment as well. We can bring in examples from defense industry who has increased in its business with Ukraine. When it comes to numbers, it's been Estonian government has been keeping count, saying that we have contributed from private sector 25 million. This is not business, but contributions. What Glimstedt has been doing is it has been in, as we all know, we've been actively communicating with governments, working ways to increase the investments into Ukraine. What we have done now, we've been talking with this with Mikhail, with you, is supporting governments to find the initiatives to support from public sector Ukraine with certain in spheres, and bringing along then, for example, Baltic entrepreneurs who can then actually work or provide some services in Ukraine. And those initiatives currently are rebuilding the energy infrastructure. And the other one is related to the fighting of the pollution, which has been caused by the war as such.
Can you tell a little bit about Estonians doing business in Belarus and Russia? What kind of choices do they face out there?
When it comes to Russia and Belarus, then I think it is the same everywhere. If the size of the business is not large enough, then you fall kind of below some radars. Of course, there are businesses that have been sold, that have been closed down, but it looks that there are a number of businesses that are trying to continue their business there to wait for the war to end.
I have been running Glimstedt office in Minsk for 7 years. And during those 7 years, I saw Belarus always balancing between the market and state-regulated economy. There have always been initiatives to start regulating the retail prices. There were initiatives to interfere into private businesses of various kinds. What is the situation today in Belarus?
This year in October, the President of the Republic of Belarus has adopted a directive, has issued a directive on the unacceptability of increasing prices in Belarus, which should just freeze the inflation in Belarus. As a result, the Council of Ministers has adopted a new price regulation system in Belarus, according to which just a ban on the price increase in all sectors, on all consumer goods, has been introduced. And from the date of adoption of this regulation system, all manufacturers, if they want to increase the prices of their goods, they have to take an approval from the governmental agencies, executives and Minsk City Council to increase these prices.
Randu, in June when we went to Kiev, we met Estonian ambassador and asked a question, what would he recommend to Estonian business or Baltic business in respect of doing business in Ukraine? And his answer was, we have to be present, we have to be there, but it was not yes or no saying for being active or not. What is your advice to Estonian or Baltic business in Ukraine?
I think what we've been now doing with Glimstedt is to, and with Mikhail as well, is to be actually prepared to be ready when it's possible to do business. the current environment is too hostile to expect that there will be actual investments to be made. Of course, there are certain transactions, certain business going, but this is not something that could be declared that somebody is actually intentionally investing there. The initiatives, as already mentioned, should take us to the position where we are able to channel the private sector interest through certain bodies to have them protected in a way that eases doing business. What Iliyashev and Glimstedt are currently, what we are working on is to be possible the bridge between the EU and Ukraine, or the Western world and Ukraine, or one of the channels, because there are not too many kind of partnership offices in Ukraine of foreign law offices.
Being the largest law firm in Ukraine, with offices in Odessa, Kharkov, I should say I am proud of getting to know you as one of the most courageous individuals whom I know in business world. What is a message you would like to convey to the viewers of Glimstedt Commentary in respect of doing business in Ukraine, in respect of investments?
Speaking about business, I certainly would like to invite everybody from Baltic countries, from Europe, to consider investing in Ukraine. Yes, it's a risk, but business is always a risk. Bigger is risk, bigger is return. I think that return on investments in Ukraine will be very good, and after Ukraine will win the war. I advise everybody to contact offices of Glimstedt, which being our partners, have the unique experience and knowledge of Ukrainian realities, and we together may help and assist all people who are interested in investing in Ukraine to find proper partners or to invest by themselves.
Having a privilege to close this program, I would like to thank you, Mikhail, especially. Thank you so much for getting connected to us in this extremely difficult time in Ukraine. Thank you, Randu, for coming to Vilnius, taking a trip and participating in our program. Thank you, Kseniya, for your in-depth expertise. And I would like to invite our viewers to our forthcoming programs, and also to remember that our life is governed by choices, not chances. And the choices that we're making today most probably will build the foundation for our future generations, whom I hope will be reading the history not of war, but of culture, education, and nice things going on today. Thank you for the viewers.